Okay, so imagine a world without the sun. Not just cold and dark, but like no life at all. That's how important the sun is to our planet.
Absolutely essential.
And that's what we're going to be diving into today.
Yeah.
This whole idea that the manifestations of God are like spiritual suns for humanity, essential for our souls to thrive.
Really fascinating concept.
Yeah, and we're going to be exploring this through a piece called Why Humanity Needs the Manifestations of God, the divine sun that sustains our spiritual existence.
Sounds like a deep dive.
Yeah. Are you ready to explore some seriously big ideas about spirituality and what shapes us as humans?
I'm ready when you are. Let's shed some light on these concepts.
I love that. But the text jumps right in. Saying these figures, we're talking about Moses, Buddha, Christ, Muhammad, Baha'u'llah.
Big names.
Huge. They're not just about laying down laws or like changing society on a surface level.
Right. It goes way deeper than that. The text argues that these figures help us tap into this wellspring of potential within us. It's like they're catalysts, sparking the very best parts of our being into life.
I love that catalyst. It makes me think about the text comparison to seeds needing sunlight to sprout.
Okay.
So are our souls like those seeds, needing these figures to truly blossom?
That's a great parallel. But the text doesn't stop there. It tackles this whole concept of resurrection, and it gets pretty interesting.
Yeah. The resurrection thing always throws me off. Makes me think of zombies or something.
Right, but hold on. We're not talking about physical bodies rising from the grave here.
Okay.
This resurrection is about the soul waking up from a kind of spiritual death.
So breaking free from things like blind dogma, rigid beliefs, or just being totally consumed by material things.
Exactly. And the text gives this really cool example. Baha'u'llah referred to the mid-1800s as a divine springtime.
Okay.
A period of incredible progress in science, art, and technology. And the text links this directly to a surge of spiritual energy released into the world. Almost like these two are intertwined.
Wow. A divine springtime. I've never thought about it like that. But do you think there's really a connection between those massive advancements in history and what was happening spiritually?
That's what's so fascinating here.
Yeah.
The text pushes us to think about where those incredible human discoveries actually come from. Is it all just our brains at work?
Just intellect.
Or is there something more to it?
Okay, so it's not just intellect.
Right. The text argues that it's our very souls pushing into the unknown, seeking those discoveries, with the manifestations providing the light for us to find them.
So these figures are almost like cosmic guides on our quest for knowledge.
You could say that.
That ties in with how the text describes each new manifestation as a sort of reset button for humanity, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not just tweaking the system. The text says it's a total transformation of the human spirit, a massive shift away from negativity and toward a life built on love, justice, unity. Powerful stuff.
Powerful. And the text argues that their teachings are even more crucial now than ever before.
For sure.
Why do you think that is?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we are facing some huge problems in the world today.
Right.
Climate change, endless conflicts, social injustice. These aren't things we can solve with brain power alone. The text suggests we need guidance that transcends human intellect if we want to create a better future.
So it's like these figures offer us a blueprint for a better world, a more peaceful, unified existence.
I think so.
And that's something we desperately need, especially now.
Exactly. That's where this idea of them being spiritual sons becomes so potent, right? They don't just point out the problems. They offer a real source of hope and guidance for how to actually address them.
So we've established that these figures are pretty vital for us to thrive.
Absolutely.
But the text doesn't just stop at vital. It compares our need for them to our need for oxygen.
Wow. That's a bold statement.
Right.
It emphasizes just how fundamental these figures are to our spiritual well-being.
It's like saying we can't truly live without them.
Yeah.
At least not in the spiritual sense. I'm really curious, though, what do you think this means on a practical level, both for individuals and for society?
That's an incredibly important question, and honestly one that each of us needs to grapple with on our own.
It definitely feels like we've just scratched the surface here. This deep dive is already making me think about things in a whole new way.
There's so much more to unpack here. I'm excited to see where this conversation takes us. This whole idea of spiritual sons, it really resonates across different traditions, you know?
It's not just confined to one specific faith.
No, not at all. The text even points that out. I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, like in Christianity, you have Christ often referred to as the light of the world.
Exactly. And in Buddhism, you have Buddha, this incredible being who shows others the path to enlightenment.
And then in Islam, Muhammad is considered the final prophet,
Yeah.
bringing God's revelation to humanity. So even though the words and the imagery might be different, the core concept that we need these spiritual guides, it seems to run through so many faiths.
It's a powerful testament to how universal this idea really is.
Yes.
But there's another layer to it that the text highlights. It's not like these manifestations are just historical figures, long gone.
Right? Their influence, their teachings, it's all still impacting us today.
Still relevant.
It's like they planted seeds that continue to grow and shape the world, even centuries later.
That's a great image, seeds that keep blossoming. And it's not just one set of seeds either. The text points out how each of these figures built upon the foundations laid by those who came before.
So it's like a relay race of spiritual enlightenment.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It really captures the essence of what the text is saying. Each manifestation brings new insights, new teachings, and it all adds up to this constantly evolving understanding of our spiritual reality.
Right.
Really fascinating.
But then the text also talks about this cyclical pattern, right?
Yeah.
Like humanity tends to drift away from those spiritual teachings over time, no matter how profound they are.
It's almost like we need these periodic reminders, these wake-up calls to reconnect with our spiritual core.
And that's where these manifestations come in. Each one a chance for humanity to hit the reset button.
Right.
To realign with our true purpose.
Exactly. And to move forward with this renewed sense of hope and inspiration. You know, all this talk about manifestations as spiritual sons, it makes me wonder, what about us?
Yeah.
What's our role in all of this?
Yeah. If they're the suns giving off all this light and energy, what does that make us?
Good question.
Are we just passively basking in their glow?
That's a fascinating analogy to unpack. Maybe we're like planets, each orbiting around these suns, receiving their light and warmth, and using that to fuel our own spiritual journeys.
Oh.
How does that sound?
So we need them for nourishment, for guidance. But we're not just inert objects.
Definitely not. We have a much more dynamic role to play, I think. The text hints at this idea that we each have the potential to become like mirrors.
Yeah. So we reflect their light back out into the world.
Exactly. It's not enough to just absorb the light ourselves. We're called to share it, to multiply it, to contribute to this whole process of spiritual evolution.
So it's not just about personal growth. It's about playing an active role in creating a more spiritually aware world.
That's it. We're all part of this interconnected web of spiritual energy. And every action, every thought, even has a ripple effect on the whole.
Wow, that makes our individual choices feel a lot more significant.
Doesn't it?
It does.
And it also makes me incredibly optimistic.
Right.
Because it means that even small acts of kindness, of compassion, of simply sharing these ideas with others, it all contributes to something much larger than ourselves.
That's beautiful. It's like we can each be these little beacons of light, guiding others who are still searching for their own way.
I love that. And you know, when you think about all the challenges we face as a species, all the darkness in the world, it's a powerful reminder that we're not alone in this journey.
We have these spiritual sons to guide us, and we have each other. It's not just about our individual connection to those figures, but about how we connect with one another.
Absolutely. We're all in this together, trying to navigate our way towards a brighter future.
This conversation has been so enlightening, and it makes me think about how this idea of spiritual sons connects to the whole concept of progress. Like every time humanity makes a significant leap forward, whether it's in science or art or even social justice, it seems like it's often been spurred on by these spiritual figures and their teachings.
That's such an interesting point, and I think you're absolutely right. It's like their teachings give us this incredible impetus to push beyond our perceived limitations, to strive for something greater.
Exactly. They challenge us to think differently, to see the world in a whole new way, and that can lead to breakthroughs in every area of human endeavor.
Think about it, from the Renaissance to the Civil Rights Movement. History is filled with examples of how these spiritual impulses drive progress. It's not just about retreating into some ivory tower of spirituality.
It's about bringing that energy out into the world and using it to make a real difference.
That's the heart of it. And you know, it makes me realize that we're actually living in a time of incredible spiritual potential.
Oh, tell me more about that. What makes you say that?
Well, just think about it. We have access to the teachings of all these amazing spiritual figures from throughout history at our fingertips. And we have the technology to share those teachings with a global audience instantly.
It's like all the pieces are in place for a truly global spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
But that also means we have a huge responsibility, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We can't just sit back and expect things to magically change. We have to be proactive, intentional about our own spiritual growth, and about how we use that energy to make the world a better place.
So where do we even begin? What's the first step in harnessing this potential?
I think it starts with recognizing the power of these spiritual teachings and making a conscious commitment to living by them. It's about aligning our lives with these principles of love, justice, and unity.
It's about becoming the change we want to see, not just talking about it, but actually embodying those principles in our everyday lives.
Exactly. And that's not always easy.
Right.
It's the most powerful way to inspire others and to create a ripple effect that extends far beyond ourselves.
This has been such a rich and insightful conversation. I feel like we've just scratched the surface, but it's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too. And I feel a renewed sense of hope knowing that we have these incredible resources to draw upon, these spiritual sons to guide us.
It really does feel like there's so much potential for good in the world, even amidst all the challenges we face.
Absolutely. And I think the key is to keep exploring these teachings, to keep deepening our understanding, and to keep sharing this light with everyone we encounter.
It's a lifelong journey for sure, and I think it's one that's full of surprises and incredible discoveries along the way.
I couldn't agree more. And I have a feeling there are many more insights waiting for us as we continue this deep dive.
Okay, so we're back and ready to keep exploring this idea of manifestations of God as spiritual sons.
Really powerful imagery.
It is. And one thing that really stood out in the text is how these figures don't just teach, they transform us.
You're right. It's not just about accumulating knowledge or like intellectually grasping concepts. The text argues it's about a profound shift in our very being.
Yeah, it's like it's not enough to just know the teachings. We have to actually live them, embody them.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The text uses this really striking analogy of a seed transforming into a plant.
Okay.
It's not just about the seed staying a seed. It's about growth development, becoming something entirely new.
That's such a vivid image. So are these manifestations like the gardeners providing the perfect conditions for our souls to go through this incredible metamorphosis?
I like that. That's a great way to think about it. Their teachings, the spiritual energy they bring into the world, it's like the sunlight and the water that nourish our spiritual growth.
And that growth can show up in so many ways.
Yeah.
Right. I'm thinking about the text's examples of increased compassion, a deeper sense of purpose, even a greater capacity for love.
Absolutely. It's about tapping into our full potential as human beings, becoming more fully alive. But here's where it gets really interesting. The text suggests that this inner transformation is not just about personal fulfillment. It's actually key to solving the world's problems.
Whoa, that's a bold claim. How so?
Well, think about it. So many of the issues we face today, conflict, inequality, environmental destruction, they all stem from this lack of spiritual awareness.
So you mean when we're disconnected from our spiritual selves, we're more likely to act out of fear, greed, selfishness?
Exactly. It creates this vicious cycle, and it's wreaking havoc on the planet.
But the text argues that the teachings of these manifestations, these spiritual sons, they offer us a way to break out of that cycle.
They do.
How do they do that?
By helping us to see ourselves as part of something much larger than ourselves. They teach us about our interconnectedness, not just with humanity, but with all of creation.
And that changes how we view the world, how we act. It pushes us to live with more compassion, generosity, responsibility.
It does. It's about aligning our actions with our highest values.
So in a sense, personal spiritual transformation is absolutely essential if we want to create a more just and sustainable future for everyone.
My belief.
This is giving me a lot to ponder. If this kind of inner change is so important, where do we even begin? How do we put these teachings into action and create this better future the text talks about?
It all starts with recognizing the importance of our own spiritual development, you know? We have to nurture our souls, just as we nurture our physical bodies.
So carving out time for prayer meditation, diving into those sacred writings, and actively living a life of service.
These are really good examples.
It all comes back to those core practices.
Exactly. Those are the tools that help us tap into the transformative power of these spiritual sons. But it's not just about what we do on our own. It's about sharing that light with others.
So becoming living examples of these teachings, showing the world what's possible.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's about embodying those principles of love, justice, and unity in our everyday lives, even in small ways. And that has a ripple effect. You know, when one person undergoes this kind of transformation, it inspires countless others.
That's a powerful thought. It gives me hope that we can create a brighter future, even amidst all the darkness.
I share that hope. We have within us the capacity to build a world that reflects the best of humanity.
And these teachings, these spiritual sons, they illuminate the path forward. Well, we've covered so much ground today, From spiritual catalysts to divine springtime to becoming beacons of light, what's the one message you hope our listener takes away from this deep dive?
I think the most important takeaway is that we're not alone on this journey. We have the guidance and support of these incredible figures, these manifestations of God who have always illuminated the path for humanity. And we each have the potential to tap into that light, to become sources of hope and inspiration in the world.
Beautifully said. It's been such a thought-provoking conversation. Thank you so much for joining us and shedding light on these powerful ideas.
It's been my pleasure.
And to you, dear listener, thank you for diving deep with us today. We hope this has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to continue exploring these concepts in your own life.
Oh.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep shining your light.